opportunity to come together under your name, Lord. And we pray that we do justice and we uphold your character, Lord. We assemble here under your name, and we ask for your presence, Lord, and the presence of your Holy Spirit. That the Holy Spirit drive the conversation and the spirit of this meeting. We pray in your holy and mighty name, in the name of Yeshua, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Are you doing your share screen?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
Okay, I'm going to mute my mic.
Where'd that share thing go? Okay. Okay. All right. So everybody should be able to see my computer, and it says Acts chapter 28, interpretation by Christine, and notes on the right-hand side. Can you all see that? Is there anybody that cannot see that?
I can see it, but it's a little small, but I don't know if you can make it bigger. Can you?
Yeah, you got some small writing.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I made it small. So I'll make it bigger, and then I'll just go back and forth. Let's see.
Are you going to post these notes later for us?
I will if you like them. I don't
Because we're supposed to keep it all in a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's see. Let's go with 150. Is that too big? Is that crazy too
No,
big?
that's not too big. I just didn't want to mess up your formatting.
What I'll do
have to be that much bigger, but okay, you're gonna
just do that. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
if you can do that, and it doesn't mess anything up.
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not too big. Okay. All right. So number one, I have to admit right off the top is that the biggest thing I learned in this study is that I do not know how to study. I cannot believe how difficult it is, and I am thoroughly convinced that you have to have the Holy Spirit to learn anything from the Bible. I did study all of Aronson's videos on parables, and then I started watching which were really good. I learned a lot from that, and then I started studying the first 3 of the presentations Parmenter did in Martinique on parables. He did 11 presentations specifically just on parables, and he goes back even further to the beginning than what he has been. And so I highly recommend those videos, the ones from Martinique. And I'm going to finish watching them all. And so I don't believe that I gleaned as much out of this chapter as I could if I were a better studier. And so this is all a learning experience for me too. And so I hope you're at least blessed a little bit, even though I don't feel like I got as much out of it as it is possible. But anyway, let's get started. So we're doing Acts 28, and this first part of Acts 28 is where they're on the island of Melita. So Acts 27 we've all been studying, and we know that their ship broke apart and they all swam for shore. And so Acts 28 verse 1, and when they escaped, then they knew that the island was called Melita. And so back on Acts 27, 44, it says that they escaped all safe to the land. So that means that it wasn't, all of them, all 276 people washed up on the shore and were safe, and they did a head count and everybody was okay. Also in Acts 27:39, it said, and when it was day, they knew not the land. And so this verse, Acts 28:1, is referring to back to 39, where they didn't know where they were, but after they ended up on the land, then they knew that they were on the island called Melita. And so it's referring back to Acts 27. Okay, so Acts, and so in my notes I put when they escaped the island, they found out it was Melita. They all, and everybody that was on the board the ship, it was the centurion, the soldiers, the master or owner of the ship, which is also the captain, the shipmen, also known as the crew, and the prisoners. And they all made it to land. And once on the island, they found out from the people of the island that it was called Melita. And Melita means honey. And I did a study on that, not a study, but oops.
It means what?
It means honey.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I know that you could learn even more from that. So I went on to the meanings of name. If you go to Melita, okay, so all of these things, all of these definitions that are on this page, I got from eSword, which is, I don't know if you've gone through it yet, but it's this complicated looking thing. And I did a search on mostly Strong's and Thayer's and Smith to find these word definitions. So Melita has an uncertain origin. Melita is an island in the Mediterranean. It means honey. It's the name of an island in the Mediterranean lying between Africa and Sicily, now called Malta. Melita, an island about 60 miles south of Sicily with an area of about 95 square miles. Its excellent position as a commercial station led to its early colonization by Phoenicians and Greeks. It became subject to Carthage, but was conquered by the Romans in BC 218 and became part of the province of Sicily. But the Carthaginian and Libyan element predominated, hence St. Luke's use of the phrase, the barbarous people. There can be no doubt that this Melita was the scene of St. Paul's wreck. And another from Smith, Melita meaning honey, the modern Malta. The island lies in the Mediterranean 60 miles south of Cape Passaro in Sicily, 900 miles from Gibraltar, and about 1,200 miles from Jerusalem. It is 17 miles long by 13 or 10 miles broad. It is naturally a barren rock with no high mountains, but has been rendered fertile by industry and toil. It is famous for its honey and fruits. It is now in the hands of the English.
I wonder, because when you have ripened fruit, that's a harvest, right?
Yes.
And Melita Sunday law. So it's a harvest starting for the whole world.
So you're saying Melita is Sunday law, and why are you saying
that? Because no, shipwreck was Sunday law, but Melita is where the Nethinims are.
Well, right. So if shipwreck is Sunday law, that's where they ended up, right?
Yeah.
So can we mark Melita as Sunday law?
Isn't that what she was saying?
Possibly. Anybody else have?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Melita is Sunday law. That's when they get married, and that's shipwreck, and that's Sunday law.
Yeah.
I don't know if your meaning is there like a time period between the shipwreck and then because they swam to the island. I don't know, but I thought it was shipwreck was Sunday law in Melita when they're at Melita.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a point in time. They don't spend days out on the water. They get to the island as fast as possible.
Oh, that's
what the ship is running around.
I thought you were just changing it.
Huh?
That's what she has there anyways. Who's changing that, Christine?
Yeah, I'm making sure. So I'm getting this is correct, right? Shipwreck equals Melita equals Sunday law.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Great input.
Yeah.
Okay, so anybody else have any comments on verse 1?
I had a question that I'm sorry I missed. What did you say was honey?
Oh, the word Melita means honey.
Okay. Okay.
And that is because, well, I don't know if that's because, but it says that Melita, the island of Melita, it is famous for its honey and fruits.
Huh.
Spanish,
What?
the word for honey in Spanish is miel.
Oh, did you hear that? Say that louder.
The word for honey in Spanish is miel.
Which is close to Melita. So,
But you can say mielita.
Yeah.
Mielita is like little honey.
Because ITA, it means little. Yeah. If you add that to any word, it makes it little. So that's like little honey. Right?
I wonder if it also, because if you look at the next verse, verse 2, the people there, it says, and the barbarous people showed us no little kindness, which is like a negative, a double negative. But what it means is they showed us a lot of kindness.
Yeah, which means they're sweet, right?
They were very sweet to them. They were kind. So the Nethinims are going to be kind to us. And it has a repeated and enlarged here because of the colon. It says, for they kindled a fire and they received us everyone because of the present rain and because of the cold. So the elements were harsh. It was in a time period because it was winter. It was in November that they landed on that island, I'm pretty sure. And the elements were harsh, and they were like, these people just felt, went through all this horrible stuff, and these Nephilim saw them and saw
Adriana,
hardship. What?
You're like echo and far. Not an echo, but I don't know. There's.
Can anyone else have this problem?
Huh?
Does anyone else?
But when you now no, but before, yeah, I thought it was just me. But
No.
Okay, I just have to be close to my computer. Anyways, so
There you go.
the people were like, if we equate it to our time, the priests and Levites get this harsh persecution, and they go through this intense event because their structure is falling apart, right? And then the people of this island see their suffering and sees their persecution and treats them kindly and helps them. So they have a sweetness there. So that's really interesting. I like that.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing, that there's a compare and contrast, but yeah, okay. So
sorry, if I can say one more thing, because what is Sunday law? It's the day of the Lord, the day of thick darkness and of storms and all this craziness, which is what the weather was when they landed on that island.
So you're saying it's a day of darkness?
The Sunday law, it's the day of the Lord, and if you look in like Joel, wherever it says the day of the Lord, it's a day of, let me find Joel. Okay, I'm gonna read this. Blow ye the trumpet, and this is Joel chapter 2, verse 1 and 2. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in a holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. For the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, and it goes into the people. But it's the day of clouds and thick darkness and gloominess, which is that storms and the weathers and all the stuff they were going through.
And that's Ezekiel what?
Joel chapter 2,
Joel?
verse
Okay.
1 and 2. Yeah.
Joel.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, cool. So
yeah, and then put in there that Sunday law is the day of the Lord. Oh, you did. Never mind. Okay. Oh no, put in there that Melita, when they landed on Melita, it was stormy in November. To connect that final thought, that was the connection.
You think November?
I think it says November, and I think
right, it does say November. I know it does.
Ellen White talks about it being November time, I think, and then Sister Tess put it in her.
Yeah, we already know it's after the Day of Atonement.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
Christine, you may want to highlight that Melita means Malta as well today, because on Tessa's presentation, I believe she uses Malta, not Melita.
Ah, okay. I'm gonna put it in parentheses so we know it's the same word. How's that? All right.
Oh,
All right.
what was this?
So in going on that same thought, the compare and contrast, barbarous or barbarous means uncivilized, savage, unlettered, untutored, ignorant, unacquainted with arts, stranger to civility of manners, cruel, ferocious, and human as barbarous. But like Sister Adriana was saying, is that they weren't like that. They were being very nice. So the whole verse, verse 2, was a compare and contrast. Because it was raining and cold, and the islanders showed them kindness by lighting a fire and receiving them, and they helped them get warm and dry.
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah.
Because I looked back at the Punic Wars, and the reason why Rome is everywhere in our culture now and not Carthage is because Rome just barely beat the Carthaginians. But there was a huge all-out war between Carthage and Rome, and they were the #1 contender after Rome for the world stage at that time. So they were pushing propaganda about Carthage everywhere they could to win the lands everywhere they could. And they were calling the Carthaginians barbarians. So it was like propaganda against those people. And
You
the
know,
people who are going to be against the United States are going to be labeled terrorists and propagandized against. So
I was also thinking that that part there where it says barbarous means unlettered or ignorant, unacquainted with the arts, kind of reminds me of how we're to do the kind of Bible study we do that doesn't have the Greek higher criticism interference in with it. So that's why they were saying that, oh, those people aren't even lettered, right? How does he know the doctrine, right? He doesn't have letters behind his name, like degrees. And so they're easier to teach, right? They're more open to hearing the truth. That's what I was thinking when I saw that.
Right. That makes sense.
Because the present reign is the doctrine, the present truth doctrine, right?
Yeah. Because it was raining and cold. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Nice input. Thank you. All right, so then, let's see, verse, and when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened on his hand. I'm going to read all 4 of these verses because they kind of go together. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said among themselves, no doubt this man is a murderer whom he hath escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffereth not to live. 5, and he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. 6, howbeit they looked when he should have swollen and fallen down dead suddenly, but after they had looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. And breaking them apart, I noticed that this one, this the second half of the first sentence in verse 3 kind of goes with this one, because it's still talking about the viper. And then these two, in verse 4, they're talking about the islanders, as well as verse 6. Okay, so then over my notes, says, I got this from Tess, that the gathering and the binding are acts of harvesting, and this seems to be like a prophecy, because Paul and the shipwrecked spent 3 months on the island, and Paul gets to minister to them during that time. And since the viper bit him and he did not die, they probably gave more weight to his words. It is paganism or spiritualism to believe that vengeance would have a mind and power to suffer someone not to live. And then the viper bit Paul. Satan tried to kill him, but Paul could not die because he represents the priests, the 144,000. Do you have any comments on that?
Sister Angela is writing here in chat. She says, where war escaped sounds passive, perhaps signifying a deliverance from above. Isaiah 60, verses 1 to 3. I'm going to read that real quick if that's okay.
Yeah.
It says, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Wow, that's perfect for that. But and then she says the 10 plus 2 tribes must go through the fire of refinement.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Good input. Thank you. Angela.
It's interesting though how first the Nethinims have to see us being persecuted in a way that looks like we should have died, but we don't. We survive whatever is thrown our direction.
Right.
And then they decide, oh, they can't possibly be horrible people. They must be gods. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of insinuating a time period of where they're just kind of watching and waiting.
Oh, good point. So they're watching, the people that are watching the priests are watching them.
No, the people are watching the priests.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah. Okay.
They're waiting to see what happens to them, kind of.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you say that Melita was honey and fruit?
Well, the word Melita means honey, but the island itself was known for their fruit and honey.
I was thinking that too, that when Adriana just said that people were waiting to see them manifest, like,
Oh yeah.
that reminded me of Aaron's rod blooming, bearing fruit or whatever, and what you said about the island and what it was known for.
Oh, I'm looking on the Google for. Oh, sorry. I'm looking on the Google for Melita, and it says that the word origin is a Hittite word origin, and it's a lush garden laden with fruit, or
Ooh, yeah.
a fruit garden.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you put the link of that in the chat? I'll add it to the notes later. Nice.
How this works.
So I know there's more in here than all than just that. Because you can't just go through 4 sentences or 4 verses and only get a little bit. But like I said, I'm not as studious as I should be. And so, I mean, there must be a lot in there. We saw that, you know, he shook off the beast and felt no harm. And like you guys were saying, that they looked for the fruits of what would happen. And I noticed that it's possible that God allowed this to get their attention. There's like a couple things that happen here, because Paul got to spend 3 months with these people, right? And you know, Paul doesn't stop talking, so he got to minister to these people for 3 months. And when you look back at that island today, there's different places on that island with his name on it. So he made a huge impact on these people. And I'm thinking that, you know, the fact that he got bit but didn't get killed, that, you know, that like opened their eyes, pay attention to this guy. They thought he was a god, which is, you know, paganism, but still, you know, it got their attention. And also he healed a lot of people, which with Christ, I think I put that in my notes, that it's what Christ got to do is heal people. So he got to take care of them physically, which allowed them to come into their hearts and take care of them spiritually. So the fact that he got bit just made a mental impression on them, so that possibly his words had more weight to them. Okay, so verse 7. In the same quarters were possessions of the chief of the island, whose name was Publius, who received us and lodged us 3 days courteously. And the name of Publius means popular, who is the chief magistrate of the island of Melita, but it means popular. Yeah.
Does that have to do with the what is
Trump?
that called again? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The populace.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
But they got lodged by them courteously for 3 days.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
so
then,
speaking of threes, in this chapter, just chapter 28, there are 6 references to 3. Number 1, they lodged with Publius, the chief, for 3 days. Number 2, they stayed on the island for 3 months. They boarded a 3rd ship. It was another ship of Alexandria with the sign of Castor and Pollux. Number 4, they tarried at Syracuse for 3 days. 5, brethren came to visit from as far as Apiforum and the 3 taverns. And 6, after 3 days in Rome, Paul called the chief of the Jews together. I just found that interesting that there were so many 3s in just this one chapter, because the chapter could have been broken up differently, but I just found it curious.
Oops, sorry.
I remember when I first was at the church in Sacramento, that we used to have a prayer, a 3-day prayer. And it was said that after 3 days, that's when you get more insight. So anyway, I thought I'd just throw that in there.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that the number 3 also represents restoration. Is that right? Wait, progressive. I just wrote it down today. Hold on. Number 3. According to Parmenter, the number 3 represents a progressive restoration.
The 3 angels.
Yeah, right. It also represents the 3 angels' message.
Do you happen to know why? I read this today, remembering you were going to teach this back where you were in your 3s.
Uh-huh.
I wondered at first if it was a misprint in my Bible on number 5, where it's got a capital "the" in front of the 3 taverns. I thought, why is there a capital "the" right there in the middle of the sentence? And the 3 taverns isn't capitalized. I don't know that I've noticed that before in the middle of a sentence where
It's because
the article like that is capitalized.
it's a locality. It's part of the name of the locality.
You have a name.
Yeah, but to answer your question, like Adrienne is saying, it is a location. And so,
Even though they don't cap the word 3 or the word taverns.
yeah, I found that curious too, but yeah, but it is like,
That capital, the capital does like a definite article. So it's the 3 taverns.
it's actually, we'll get into this later, but it's a, the 3 taverns was near the modern cisterna. Just at this point, a road came in from Antium on the coast. There is no doubt that the 3 taverns was a frequent meeting place of travelers. And so it's I think it's 17 miles from Rome is this place, the 3 taverns.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, and I found that in eSword.
It had a shop, a general store, and a blacksmith's. No, yeah, the shop's there. A general store, a blacksmith's, and a refreshment.
Speak in your mic.
The 3.
Sorry.
It's okay. I need to keep remembering. It had 3 shops there. It was the last stop on your way to Rome, and it was 3 roads that led to it. And the 3 stores that were there were a general store, a blacksmith's, and a refreshment house. And it says 3 taverns, but it's more correctly translated as 3 shops.
Okay, cool, thank you. All right.
That's what the word forum means in Strong's.
That was for the 3 taverns.
But the Appian Way has the API.
Yeah, the Forum was a marketplace of Appius. So yeah, the Appii Forum was the marketplace of Appius, and it's not the same as the 3 taverns. Those were 2 different locations. The Appii Forum was 10 miles from Rome, and the 3 taverns was 17 miles from Rome. And if you add them together, it equals 27. Just FYI. I just thought that was interesting. Let's see. And we'll get into later where those 2 are. Let's see. We are. Okay, so I'm not sure what it meant by in the same quarters, because it's not in the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island, whose name was Publius, who received us and lodged us 3 days courteously. And it doesn't, I mean, like all of a sudden it jumps out and it's talking about those quarters, but it hadn't mentioned quarters before. So I guess I'm assuming that it just meant in the same part of the island where they landed, where they were received by the islanders, is where Publius was located. And he lodged them.
Go back.
Okay.
What are you confused about? I'm not understanding.
Where it says right here, in the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island.
Wouldn't that be in the marketplace or wherever all those places were? Those would be the quarters?
No, because so far we haven't actually got to that part yet.
Okay.
And so they don't mention the 3 taverns and stuff until they get to Rome.
Okay.
So we're still on the island of Melita, and they haven't talked about quarters or tents or houses or anything on this island yet. And then all of a sudden it says in the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island. So
Did you look at the word quarters there?
no, I haven't.
But when it says in verse 2 that they received us,
Can't hear her.
when it says in verse 2 that they received us, where did they receive them? They didn't leave them out in the cold. They took them out from it inside from out in the cold, isn't it?
Right. Okay, that's good. Okay, cool.
And it says chief man, and that reminds me of the chief prince that was with Paul. So there's kind of a contrast there, or parallel.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Cool. Chief Prince, yeah. All right. I think that's all I have on that part of it.
I wonder if, because I still wonder about the chief of the children of Ammon. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, that's a good question too.
Some
Okay,
correlation there, probably.
what's that?
I was gonna say, might be some correlation there.
Yeah, it totally could be. So we'd have to go back to the,
From what I remember in previous studies, his first fruits.
Oh,
Say that again. First
From what I
fruits.
remember from previous studies from Jeff, the chief was first fruits.
Oh man, I need to get that study from him.
isn't that in his Time of the End magazine?
Is it?
I think it is.
Thank you. That makes sense why there's first fruits in Achaia.
Hmm.
That's a, okay, thank you, sorry.
what study was that?
It's a study that I'm doing on Acts chapter 18 about Apollos. There's a city there called Achaia, which is where Apollos ends up going to. Apollos is this learned Jew that is preaching the baptism of John. And then Aquila and Priscilla take him aside and expound to him the fullness of the gospel of Christ. And then he goes preaching that with power, and he goes to Achaia to preach it there. And Achaia, if you look back in the history, it is a federation of Greek city-states, which is what the federal government of the United States is based off of. It takes you back to the Achaean League, which was in the time of Pyrrhus. And Achaia means trouble. And it has two places in the New Testament where Paul writes that there were first fruits out of Achaia, Epaenetus and Stephanas, the house of Stephanas. So you have an American-like federation, it's in trouble, and there's first fruits. So it's interesting.
Check out what Jonathan just put in chat.
Says the word chief in Daniel 11:41 means first fruits, and it comes from the root word which means shaking. Edom, Moab, and Ammon in Daniel are the first fruits of the loud cry message, which begin to join God's people at the time of the passage of the Sunday law in the United States, which is also when the shaking moves from Adventism into the world, when the latter rain is illustrated coming to the end by Isaiah. The three tribes are no longer the first fruits and therefore are no longer the chief of the children of Ammon. Nice. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
What was the presentation somebody mentioned about that, was it Pippinger or Parmenter did on first fruits?
It's right here. That's it. Time of the End magazine, what Jeff said. Page 40, what you just read.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, cool. So. So, verse 8, and it came to pass that the father of Publius lay sick of a fever and a bloody flux, to whom Paul entered in and prayed and laid his hands on him and healed him. So when this was done, others also, which had diseases in the island, came and were healed, who also honored us with many honors, and we departed. And when we departed, they laid us with things as were necessary. Paul healed Publius's father and many other people of the island. The flux is a noun, and it means the action or process of flowing or flow, process of flowing or of flowing. Number 2, it's abnormal discharge of blood or other matter from or within the body. Can we put that in with our study? Does that fit somewhere as a symbol?
Which one?
A flux, the action or process of flowing or flowing, an abnormal discharge of blood or other matter from within the body. Francisco said Christ's blood on the cross.
It's something we heal them from, though.
So like I was saying earlier, the healings got the attention of the people and allowed him to minister to them physically and spiritually. So I thought that was great that, Paul was able to heal just like Christ did, because like a lot of times you have to be able to take care of them physically before they'll open up their mind and their heart to allow you to take care of them spiritually. Does anybody have any other input on that?
Angela does in chat.
Oops. Uh-oh, I did not mean to stop doing that.
Did you stop screen share?
Yeah, I hit the wrong button.
Okay, because I thought I hit the wrong button at the same time you hit the wrong button. I was like, what did I do?
So Angela shared fever. Simon Peter's mother-in-law had a fever healed by Christ, a bloody flux. The woman who'd chronic bleeding healed by him. That's right. That's right. There's just from reading this, studying this one chapter, you can make all these connections throughout the Bible and go back and forth. You could probably study this chapter for, a week, a month, and still not get everything out of it. It's pretty amazing when you actually sit down to study. And then I realized, even though I had started a long time ago to study this, it still wasn't enough time. So I still didn't get very far. I didn't finish the study because it was a lot bigger than I had anticipated.
But you enjoyed it, didn't you?
Yeah, I feel like I was really blessed. But I feel also like I failed you guys because I haven't finished what I started.
Christine, do you remember that Monday night when I told everyone, I'm like, it's going to be really rough when you start doing this the first time. It's going to be bad and you're going to feel like a failure. And that's because you never used these muscles before.
Yeah, I felt it. You're right. And
yeah. So now you're sore.
Yeah, now I'm sore. And yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that back up because it's true.
Yeah, this is not easy. And in Tessa's presentations of Alexandria and Adramyttium, she talks about Christ teaching in parables, and it's on there. They're very difficult to understand. It's hard to understand them if you don't practice them regularly.
Yeah, I do. The other day on Sabbath, I forget what day. Anyway, I went for a walk in the morning. And I was praying and asking, for God to show me what in nature, His laws, show me what your truths were in nature. And He reminded me of a parable that He taught me a long time ago. And it started me to wonder, we have all these parables in the Bible, but if we're supposed to teach in parables, we would need to pick out stories and things that or day to day that people would recognize, right?
Yeah.
I used to ride mountain bikes, and one of the things he taught me was that when you're on the path and you're looking down the path, if you look at the obstacle, you're going to hit it. So if there's a tree really close to the path and you don't want to hit it, don't look at the tree. You keep your eyes on the path. If you look at the tree or the boulder, you're going to hit it. And I can prove that because I did it over and over again. And my slogan was after every ride is like, if you're not bleeding or bruised, you weren't having fun. And so if you look at the sin or the obstacles, you're gonna end up in that sin or the obstacles. What you need to do is keep your eyes on Christ. And I knew that thought, but it never came to me in such a way as it did when he reminded me of this lesson, this parable that he taught me a long time ago.
That reminds me of when I started to drive. My mom's friend said, if you want to drive straight and within the lines, you can't look immediately in front of the car. You have to look way out in front of you, way ahead.
Amen.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's a good point, because that means for you, I mean that's a great study. You have to think ahead. You have to be studying of what's coming up. We have to be having our eyes on prophecy, and so that's another great parable to share.
Yeah.
And so I wonder, because I was wondering, we can't. Is it, Lord, that we can't just share what's in the Bible? We're going to have to pick out. We're going to have to use stories that people can relate to right now.
That's what our experiences have been all about. For a reason, when God brings the right people, you'll have had the right experience, each one of us, right?
Right, exactly.
And we're to be parables. I think, when was that? We were reading that. Was it Sabbath? Where it said something, Christian life, or I forget how it was, but it was like, that means we're parables. So the stories, the experiences you've lived are like parables.
Right, exactly. It's like when Christ was teaching, he was looking out around him at the things that were going on to bring their attention back to these, so he's out there, right? And he picks out, the sea and boats and fishing and farming, it's these things that he can see right there. He's got experience with it. All these people that are listening to him have experience with it, and they can relate.
Amen.
Well, not everybody can relate to farming nowadays because we all live in cities, or right? The people that we're talking to.
Can I interrupt real quick? I just Googled something. So populism is the threat to democracy.
Oh.
It's the populist leaders are 4 times more likely than non-populist ones to harm democratic institutions.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So let's go back to verse 7. In the same quarters were possessions of the chief of the men of the island, whose name was Publius, who received us and lodged us 3 days courteously.
I wondered about the father of Publius also in verse 28:8.
That's what made me start Googling.
Father,
I don't know.
But what you just were saying, does it relate to something of that nature, Adriana?
I was actually
populism, or
I was Googling father of populism. That's how I got to this.
Oh, you were thinking on that too.
Yeah,
huh?
the first one that I saw, the first one that started to do this in the United States was this Father Clogan, this Catholic guy, in the 1930s. I didn't click on the links for that though, but I was wondering.
Interesting.
Oh, great way to put that together.
Yeah. Well, this is why you need multiple people to work together on this kind of thing.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And
Oh, populists attack individual rights. Under populist rule, freedom of the press falls by some 7%, civil liberties by 8%, and political rights by 13%.
Because populism takes the crowd over, right? Meaning the minority loses its rights, right? Because the minority is mowed down by the populist view.
But that means that the popular ideas are always seeming to be of a combination of church and state. It's never democratic ideas that are popular where people get freedoms, which is interesting. So
Oh, like crowd control? You mean like how they take the crowd by thought control?
No, so what I'm saying is populism is the majority of people, the leader who's being elected goes to please the majority of the populace, right? He's a populist.
Yes.
But that means that if populism has always been a threat to democracy, that means the popular side of things was always Protestant Republicans or conservatives. Isn't it?
I don't know if it,
Well,
I don't know. I'd have
Because
to,
that would be the threat to democracy.
may I make a comment?
Yeah.
Democracy under the Greek model is rule of the majority, rule by majority rule. And that isn't really God's ideal.
right.
Republicanism
Amen.
is everyone has rights and every right is equal to everyone else's rights. Populism just rides in on a tide of, in essence, very similar to democracy. The majority, and we're going to railroad over anybody that stands in our way, kind of. So democracy is not the ideal.
Yeah, but the democratic approach is to keep the laws of the rights of the people, which we know what we're going to end up fighting for those rights also with them.
Yeah, that's what's hard when you talk to people, because the word throws people. They think democracy is something different, and a lot of people, if you talk about that, they don't realize we're a republic. And then if you talk about republicanism, they think you're talking about Republicans and Democrats. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they don't understand the terms well enough. We've lost understanding of our rights and things.
Yeah, because everywhere that the United States goes, they try to establish a democracy.
Democracy, right?
Yeah, not okay. Let's go to the Middle East and establish a Republican, Protestant something.
Well, the U.S.
Ow.
Mike's.
Talk about my
You guys have to shut one of your mics off while the other one's talking. There you go.
Sorry about
Christine and Francisco, and then the other one is Francisco Christine. That's funny.
Outer space.
we just landed.
The country is a republic and it's not a democracy, and a lot of people don't realize that or even know that. Yeah.
So
Yep.
why is, well then see, this is why I need to go study how these things work, because why do we always say we're establishing a democracy everywhere? The best government is a democracy.
That's new language, because the United States was established not just as a republic but a constitutional republic. And what that means is in a democracy you get mob rule. 51% can take the rights away from the other 49%, but in a constitutional republic not even 99% of the population can take the inalienable rights away from the 1%.
Yep.
You're born with them, no one can take them away.
Whoa. So why are they trying to establish a democracy everywhere since everyone hates it?
Because they want mob rule.
Your rights.
Because they want mob rule, because they can change laws by getting popular votes.
Yep. So democracy, someone told me, was like two wolves fighting with a sheep. Who's gonna win?
We're becoming France all over again, the haves and the have-nots. And
Yep.
French
we're
Revolution.
starting to get fed up with it.
That's what John posted in the chat. What is it? It says a populism, a political approach that strives to appeal to ordinary people who feel that their concerns are disregarded by established elite groups.
There you go. That's the when you up at your definitions, Christine, it said that the barbarous people were uneducated. I can't remember all of them, but see, the people have become so uneducated in as far as the rights of in this country, because there's been entertainment keeping people so busy on stupid stuff that, you know, the government can be robbed right in front of them and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
We're so hypnotized by television.
Yeah, that's what Rome did.
Sure.
During the day, they entertained the people with food, bread, and circus. So, like, you know, like football and
I think they're desensitized too by the entertainment.
yeah.
And if you,
Looking at what, you know, adding to this, or I don't know if it adds to it, but looking at, you know, the French Revolution and going back to the Civil War. Anybody seen what has happened the last couple of days with Trump between the four?
Oh yeah, telling them to go back to their countries.
Yeah.
I am just blown away that people, well, I guess when you go to barbarous, I don't know, uncivilized, savage, unlettered, untutored, ignorant.
we're the only ones that are surprised. You
All
know,
these people are just loving what he says, and it's like, that is so, I don't even know the right words to put into it, to actually love that someone speaks such hatred, and then he turns around and denies it and says that's what they do.
Right.
But this barbarous is talking about the Nethinims that come in.
Yeah, that come in.
if you look at the past histories, the only ones that are surprised and shocked by this are the Americans. If you go to the Europeans, they've had century after century of crazy kings, crazy rulers, and all this. They've seen it before. And we've been blessed so much in this country, we've never seen it. And now that it's in front of us, we're going like, wow, this dude is crazy and blah, blah, blah. But we knew he's the last president, and that's the character he has to have to be the last president.
Yep. He's
Yeah.
a vile man, like Daniel says.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just totally amazing to watch people actually think that that's all a good thing. It's so extreme. It's getting more and more extreme, and it's just, I don't know, it amazes me.
This couldn't have happened in any other time in history when you think about it, because there's no way even 10, 15 years ago that someone like Trump would get elected, let alone get the mobs running the way they're running and agreeing with what he's saying. They would, like 10 years ago, people would not have gotten behind him with what he's doing, but for whatever happened in the last 10 years.
God's hand driving. God's hand's driving.
Yeah, I never saw it before, but there's certain people at my work that really like Trump, and they have, especially one individual has made some really racist remarks where I was just like shocked that could like I was shocked.
That's because they've always been like that, really, inside.
Yeah, and he gave them free range to act out that hatred in there.
So they're going to manifest their fruit.
Yeah.
Their rotten fruit.
Wow.
May I make two observations, please? The first one is that the emphasis at the beginning of Acts 28 is on how kindly, and Christine, you mentioned this beautifully at the beginning, but how kindly and courteously Paul and the others were received.
Yeah.
Which gives us an earnest of what our reception will be.
Amen.
And it will be amongst more of the uneducated, as Christ taught.
Yep.
It was fishermen that followed him, and it was many times the poorer people and the uneducated, the ones that were looked down on or were outcasts. Second thing is the miracles that were done, Paul not being affected by the viper, and it mentions how the people were watching him closely, and it was over a period of time, it says for a while. And then the healings as well. And again, that's another earnest of what will happen as in Christ's reform line, so for the 144,000, well, actually the priests after the Sunday.
So that makes me wonder, are they watching us right now?
Well, if you think
They are.
they if you think about it too, look at the agricultural models, right?
Yeah.
They're receiving, by 2014 the Nethinims are receiving their plowing, they're receiving their early rain, right? And so the external events are actually playing a role in preparing them to receive it, the message.
Veronica wants to know, Victoria wants to know if anyone can hear her, because I don't hear her and she's trying to talk.
Yeah, I can't hear.
No, I can't hear.
She's writing on chat.
Okay.
Elaine, that was a good point though. Their plowing is preparing them. They will recognize the message that we come with. They'll hear the I was going to use the word fairness, but the truthfulness
Amen.
in it, and the impartiality, and everything that God represents, that the world has buried under garbage. Their heart will respond to what they know to be right and what they see as the truth, and they're going to be ready. They're going to
To
be.
me, it speaks volumes to looking at the fact that we've tried to go and talk to the church and, trying to bring in more priests or trying to prepare Levites and such. It shows that it's God that's doing the work. We have no power in ourselves to do this. We have had it wrong to even try to do it. And it's God that's doing the work.
Right.
I was thinking about the healings and, how we're supposed to read things through spiritual eyes, not just, not the literal for literal, and how the midnight cry has miraculously in an instant healed certain people within the message. And I don't mean from physical ailments, but I mean from spiritual perspectives or religious perspectives. The message came out, and immediately, because most people in the movement are conservative, they accepted it. And maybe not everybody, but we accepted things. And Debbie, you gave a little bit of a speech at the camp meeting there, talking about some things that you were ready to finally let go. And to me, that was a miracle. I don't know if you see it the same way or not.
Amen, Jonathan.
Because
instantaneously, God is able to do anything. Amen.
And that's what we all had to do when this message came out, and as it's progressing and growing, is God is healing us first, because we have things that we need healing of, and we have spiritual perspectives that would not have allowed us to carry this message through to its fullness. And these perspectives change so quickly. Like, we're coming in excited the very next day after being told, like everything that we had once believed was we were on the wrong stream. And everyone was excited about it the next day as if they were healed. I don't know. It was just a really weird experience when we were listening to Tess's message. And I can kind of see it being the same thing here, where the healing is not a physical healing. I don't think we're going to be healing sick.
And Jonathan, if I may add to that, one of the things in Tess's one message that I know confirmed for me something I was convicted of in 2014 very first time that I heard Elder Jeff presenting about the concept of no evangelism. When Sister Tess went into, we would cause people harm because we didn't have the right message.
Yeah.
And no evangelism was God's directive for a purpose, because
Amen.
we didn't have the correct message, and therefore we would have had people lost because we were running when we weren't sent. And so God is very merciful. He's opening our eyes, all of us, different things, different ways, and so on, but because he's wanting us to truly settle into the truth so that we will not be moved and that we really will have a message to take others.
Oh. Thank you. Those are really, really insightful on both of you. Thank you for sharing those.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Now.
Okay. Yeah, I had to leave out and come back in. But I just wanted to comment when you guys were talking about parables and using nature or, life experiences and explaining to people these truths as well. And it just made me think of recently when I was watching the news and that whole, I'm just watching the news and they're presenting this excerpt about Tyler Skaggs and how everything in that whole day and honoring him because he recently died, like the numbers and the hits and all of that kind of stuff, it just related to his life, his birth and everything else. There's like a whole article on it and it was presented in the news. And I thought that was so interesting because it makes me think as we're studying this truth ourselves and how God works and explaining things to us. And we think about how we cannot make this stuff up. This is the truth. This is the truth. This is God speaking to us. And that experience for many people and seeing that whole day in honor of Tyler Skaggs, if anybody heard that story, you kind of can know what I'm talking about, but how everything happened and it was correlating to his life. And they didn't plan that. It was just not a part of the whole thing and how they wanted to honor him, but how the numbers added up to his birth and all these other things of his life events or his persona as a baseballer, that was just so interesting. And people were saying the same things like, wow, you can't make this stuff up. This was not us. This is beyond us, how all of this correlated to him, and we didn't even do that on purpose. So when they hear us have a testimony like that, they would be able to relate to that.
Yeah, God's feeding them with these things to prepare them for what we're going to tell them. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I thought that was so interesting. I can put the link in there, if you guys want to see, but, I thought that was just so interesting.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, put the link in there, please.
So they won't think some of this is real strange when we start saying some of these numbers in the Bible and things, because God's already preparing their mind to accept that as a real possibility.
Yeah, right.
I think over time they've done that too, like with Lincoln and Kennedy, their commonalities and stuff like that, and their assassinations. And so, yeah, like Victoria was saying, there have been precedent where these kind of things of bring their people's attention to the numbers and how things correlate like that. So that's cool. Thanks for bringing that up. it's already almost 7:30. How about if I just do this one last, not this one last verse, because there's more to it, but this is the last verse where they're actually on Alexandria, or they're actually on the island and they're getting ready to leave. And then once we get from this into 12, then it gets into Rome. And so it's after they departed. So they were honored by the islanders, and the islanders gave them everything that they were going to need for their journey. So that would be the Nethinims, right? Giving us what we need. So maybe when we Ansem, and when we have to get out of the cities during the persecution or the plagues and such, or the persecution, maybe they will be doing like they did to the Israelites in Egypt. I don't know. It's just a thought. And then after 3 months, so they were on the island of Melita for 3 months. Paul getting to minister and preach to them during the whole time. And they left in another ship from Alexandria. And and this ship had wintered on that same island, so that the ship of Alexandria, this other one, which is actually Castor and Pollux, was the I guess, I don't know, the same. It was a sign that I don't know, that thing that what did they put on the front of the ships?
It was on their flag. It was on their flag.
Yeah, their flag, right? It was Castor and Pollux. And
Trump's sun sign, by the way.
What's that?
That's Trump's sun sign. Castor and Pollux.
It is?
It's a
sun. And he was born on Flag Day in 1946. So
I didn't know he was born on Flag Day. But I thought Castor or Pollux were stars or something. Are they stars?
Yeah, they are.
Well, yes. Here it is right here. So Castor and Pollux, they were the sons of Jupiter. That is the twins Dioscuri, Castor and Pollux. They were the twin sons of Jupiter and Leda, and were regarded as the tutelary divinities of sailors. So when things happened wrong and stuff, sailors would pray to Castor and Pollux. That was the gods of the sailors. They were the twin brothers, the sign or figurehead of the Alexandrian ship in which St. Paul sailed from Malta. Perhaps one of those employed to bring corn or wheat to Rome. The twins, Gemini, were the protectors of sailors. In mythology, they were sons of Zeus and Leda and were placed in the sky as a constellation for their brotherly love. One of them, I can't remember which one, but one of the twins died, and the brother who lived asked for I don't know, either to die or to live forever for his brother, somehow so they could both be together. And so Zeus put them in the constellation as stars. And I don't remember exactly how that story goes, but that's how they became Gemini, the constellation. And Castor means to shine or to excel. And somebody thinks that it might be beaver too, but they can show that.
It is in French.
Yeah, because Castor with a K is beaver. And then Pollux means very sweet. And that's that. Cool. All right, so is everybody good if we stop here? Because it's already been an hour and a half. I don't want to take up your whole night. And there's actually like 30 some verses in this, but
and you'll send out your notes?
31. Yeah, 31. There's 31 notes. Now I didn't God must have knew exactly where we were going to stop, because that's as far as I got in my study. 2011, and no kidding. And from here, it just talks about the leg of the final leg of to Rome, and it talks about oh, actually, this is where I did get all the there's definitions in my notes for Syracuse, Regium Puteoli.
We'll be able to do a study on that ourselves. That'd be great.
Yeah.
We could
I have
finish
a
it ourselves.
question.
Yeah, please.
I'm just wondering, because you get to Sunday law, and between Sunday law and close of probation, that's the history that it's talking about on the island of Melita. So is verse 11 starting the line of like Alexandria again, like another repeat and enlarge, like it did with Adramyttium, and then it stopped after 4 or 5 verses and it started over again?
I don't know, because they only well, let's see, it's a good question, because the final leg of Rome is from, well, kind of basically verse 11 through 15, and then they're in Rome. So this part right here, the final leg of Rome, is where they're actually on the Alexandria, and then they get to Rome and they're done with the ship. Does that help?
Right. Paul gets to Rome, and that's where his his trial is.
Yeah, so that's where he goes his defense before the Jews of Rome.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because they go on another journey on another ship here, and while on the first lines we had the east wind blow marking a 9/11, this journey has a south wind blowing.
Oh,
Yeah.
So it would mention the king of the south, but you can't have the king of the south again after Sunday law.
Right.
So I'm just putting a thought out there because I'm not sure.
Gotcha.
And if you read those quotes that I had sent you, so Paul goes to Rome and he has to sit there and wait for his trial for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And while he's waiting for his trial for 2 years, he's preaching and spreading the gospel. Even while he's in chains, he still manages to spread the gospel. Everyone comes to him.
Right. They allowed him to live in a place by himself with another soldier, with the soldier. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me of nowadays how they let people stay at home with those ankle bracelets on.
That's right. I found this curious. I was looking up a word, and okay, so I know for me, the way I've been taught on how to read a compass, so we always, or at least in the United States, we always go from north. We go north, east, south, west in a clockwise fashion, and all our maps are oriented towards the north. Well, and I don't know if that's different, but I just know that I read this. The Hebrew term kiddim properly means that which is before or in front of your person, and was applied to the east from the custom of turning in that direction. So in Hebrew, when they are orienting themselves, they turn themselves towards the east, whereas we always turn ourselves towards the north. They turn themselves towards the east, and they describe the points of the compass. So whatever's before them is to the east, whatever's behind them is to the west, and then you have the right and the south, which is, the right and the left representing respectively the east. So east, west, south, and north. So the east is where they point, west is behind them, south is to the right of them, and north is to the left of them. I just found that interesting.
I think it goes back to the layout of the sanctuary, isn't it?
Probably, yes, because
it's from east to west.
Right, because the sanctuary was in the east, and everybody was to pray towards the sanctuary, towards the east. And if anybody prayed towards the east and asked for forgiveness, God would listen to their prayer. Right?
Yeah.
So I just found that interesting. And there's an interesting side note. Okay. Well, that's all I have for today. Does anybody have any more questions?
This was a good study.
Awesome. God is good because it was all the Holy Spirit.
It
Thank
was
you.
enjoyable, Christine.
And
Very
thank you.
enjoyable. Are you going to continue next Monday with this?
No, because next Monday, aren't we going to start the video? John is going to start
okay.
next Monday. So, yes.
We don't have any, John couldn't start till next week. So this Wednesday, if nobody has anything that on the topics of the Midnight Cry wants to do, then we'll go ahead and do one last Christ object lesson study before we pick up in those presentations.
Okay.
And then that leaves Friday. I don't know if I can pull off getting notes for the Noumea, but I'd sure like to. I'll try to, because I'd like to do the Noumea ones. Well, we can still watch the video even if I don't get notes on Friday.
So since John couldn't do it on Monday, are we changing the schedule?
No, he couldn't do it until
Monday. On Monday. John's there, right? Is he still here? Yeah, he's there.
So
I'm doing it next Monday, right?
Yeah, Monday night.
Yep.
Okay.
Monday night, and it's in the email. And then Victoria is July 24th. That must be Wednesday.
Yeah.
Susan is July 26th. That's Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And Christine is July 29th, the following Monday.
Correct.
And
Okay.
then Tony and then Adriana. It's in that I'll go that far for now.
Okay, great. All right.
So Friday we'll do the Noumea presentation. If I get notes, I hope to, but if I don't, I don't. So if anybody has anything they want to do on Wednesday on Midnight Cry topic. Okay, I'll go ahead and do continue on with Christ object lessons for Wednesday.
I haven't heard of Noumea. What's that? Is that another camp meeting?
No, it's the presentations we were doing with Parminder on Friday nights.
Oh, okay.
The youth group.
Okay, now the name.
We're on, I think, either number 7 or 8. I have to look at the
Okay.
notes, but I think we're on 7 or 8. And there's 11 of them total.
These are the presentations. These are the last MP3s that I have that we're listening to in the car right now.
The Noumea ones?
Yeah, the ones that we're doing on Fridays.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, these are the last ones that I had. Those are the ones we took camping with us.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I did get worked on the Martinique ones, so I'll have those out in a few days because I was doing that while you guys were studying.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and I do have other ones that I already have, so I'll get a few extras out, put them together because I thought I sent some out to some recently, but okay.
Hey Elaine, I'm sorry, I didn't check today. You sent out that email I sent you last night, right?
Not yet. I'm gonna send it out tonight with when I do the audio.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to send any of these notes, Christine, before I send out the audio.
Yes. Let me kind of clean them up and add links on whatever additions that were put in.
Okay.
And then I'll send them out.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
Hey,
for your input.
who would like, if anybody would like to volunteer? Adriana, you do so well with song service on the Sabbath. Can you do song service with just you?
I'm not cool with just myself by alone, no.
I know it's hard to do with us because it's all delayed.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Or we can do a video if somebody wants to pull up a video and do a song and do a prayer.
Yeah.
Let's see
Somebody wants to pick one.
what song you got.
Is somebody looking?
Yeah, what song?
Lead on, O King Eternal.
What?
Lead on, O King Eternal.
Did you find a video?
Are you kidding? You're talking to a techno moron here.
I think I found it. Hang on. this it?
You want to
Oh.
share? Go ahead, share.
Is this it?
Is it gonna have singing? Oh,
Yeah. Is that
Good.
okay?
yeah, yeah. Since nobody wants to sing. So we're not hearing it.
What church is this? Is this the?
We're not hearing it, Adriana. Is that you that shared it?
Oh man. Okay. Sorry, I forgot that I have to do this. Hang on just a second. I don't know what church this is. I have to stop recording to do this.